Hello and welcome back to another episode of On a Related Note podcast. I'm Mecca.
And I'm Miyah. How are you? Anything interesting from the last episode?
I'm good and I started working again. I have been out for a couple months, but I'm back to work and they have us in there at 8 a.m. every day, so that's been rough for me because I'm not a morning person. But besides that, I've been good. How about you? Anything interesting?
I've also been good. And randomly, for some reason, last night I had a dream that um I had a dream that some dude's YouTube channel had this like series of shorts, and one of them was answering a fan question of what's your favorite SpongeBob character, and he answered it with this fan edit to like this fire trap music, and it was some old lady dancing in the video, but it was like a bunch of Mr. Crab nicknames going across the screen, and that was his answer to the question. And then I just woke up and I'm like, okay. I don't know what that says about me because
Uh,
he's not really my favorite. I don't think I have a favorite SpongeBob character, which might be a little sacrilegious because SpongeBob was a lot of our childhoods in Gen Z. So,
yeah, I don't know.
but yeah, that's my
Leave it to you to have the weird thing. But anyway, today's topic, it's June, it's Pride Month, so we're gonna be on topic with this episode.
Rainbow Brain.
Yeah, where to begin?
What's good to our guys, gals, and non-binary pals? Happy Pride! Woo! I
Woo!
don't mean that sarcastically. I just wanted to say it like that. But yeah, how should we start this? It's a lot to
Um,
talk about on this general topic.
Now, this video might be a surprise to some, or a confirmation or aha moment to some, and maybe even disappointing or confusing to others. But um, it's 2024, you guys, and this is just normal. So
It is what it
yeah,
is.
it's episode 2, and we're really getting into it. um, yeah, so I guess I don't know. I've never really talked about this topic with anyone, so I don't know where to start necessarily. So I might be all over the place because like I have a lot to say, but I don't really have that much to say at the same time. So um, forgive us if this is a little disjointed, but I'm like I said, I've not talked about it out loud, so I don't even know how to talk about it. So yeah.
I've talked about it in bits and pieces with different friend groups for several years. So like mentally, I'm just piecing together the story into one cohesive, coherent tale.
I feel like on that note, you should probably take the reins,
Oh, okay.
and then I'll just, I'll jump in, or once it's a good time for me to just be like, yeah, so this is my side of the story, or this is about me, then we can do it that way. But yeah.
Yeah, with that said, I honestly don't talk about it a lot because it's not an obvious and or necessary thing to talk about for me personally. Like if I never mention it, it does not affect things like work or really even like friendships and stuff, so I don't really care to talk about it. But in my head and in my soul it's a thing. So um my relationship to the LGBT plus community at this time in 2024 um, is that I associate with the LGBTQIA part of it, which could stand for asexual. It also stands for like agender, I think, and some may argue ally, but that's a topic I'm not going to go into because we're not here for hot takes on this podcast right now. Um, but yeah, so my current identity label is asexual and aromantic. I decided to actually Google what the internet might define these things as without me just saying it. so they can sound a little more official, I suppose, even though I don't know if this is necessarily a credible source. It's literally LGBTQ dot was university.edu. I don't
I
know.
mean, it's educational, I
Yeah, it's
guess.
educational. Somebody's college. Oh, North Carolina, that's what it is. UNC. Um, at Chapel Hill. So shout out to them, I guess, for giving a lot of definitions on this page. But okay, so they describe asexuality as a sexual orientation that is different from celibacy, in that celibacy is the choice to refrain from engaging in sexual behaviors and does not comment on one's sexual attractions. So, in that note, asexuality, or people that are identifying as asexual, um, feel a little or no sexual attraction to people. It is not a choice to not like feel sexual attraction, which, I had to be the one that has the most weird, convoluted sexuality that even people with the sexuality don't understand, me
I
included.
wouldn't call it weird. I'd just
I
say
say weird in the sense
confusing.
of like it's abstract, than
Mm.
is a little more abstract for people who are totally out of the loop to try to understand than like homosexuality, which is kind of like the face of LGBT community, especially with the flag.
Mm.
Um, which is why even explaining it to people every time I have to bust out the metaphorical textbook and be like, okay, so in chapter 1, this is what this means, and in chapter 2, this is why I feel like I have this. In chapter 3, this is why I'm not making it up. And they're like, okay, and I can see the confusion in their face. I'm like, yeah, me too. But but on that note, a romantic is very similar with the a prefix. A little to no attraction, romantic attraction to people, and that's the really watered down definitions. And I'm probably not going to get into like the politics and all that on this episode because that might literally take the entire episode. Um, but my personal journey, I guess, as to why I even landed on those terms started no, since the day I was born. Um, but probably it started as an actualization in middle school, but the groundwork was there in elementary school when like all little kitties had crushes, and I'm like twiddling my thumbs, like I don't really understand why y'all doing that, but okay, do you? I never really judged them for it, but I was like, I'm over here drawing characters on my loose leaf paper and making up random stories, and everyone else is like, "So my boyfriend," and they're like in third grade, and I'm like, I mean, that's not really an issue necessarily. It depends on what y'all doing and like talking about, and how, if it's healthy, toxic, whatever. As much as an 8-year-old relationship
Back
might
in our
be,
day, it was just cute.
it
You
was
know, it was a cute little,
wholesome for
yeah,
the most part.
innocent.
I mean, sometimes they got a little like arguing about stupid stuff and then break up, and then like next week they have another boyfriend, and I'm like, I don't get it.
Also innocent. Like, they don't get it either.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I was like, I can't hold it. When I got older, I was like, I can't hold it against anyone. But I personally never understood that and never felt the need to have a crush. I remember once, I think it was second grade, where I was trying to get on the bus, like look for my bus, and I saw it. So I was leaving to go to my bus from school, and this boy was like running up to me and was walking alongside me and was like literally with no other start to the conversation, was like, "Hey, Lamia," and I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I like you. Want to be my girlfriend?" And I was like, "Huh?" Like, no, question mark. And he got mad at me. And like I don't remember what he said. It was like supposed to be an insult, but it really, I was just like, okay. And then he just stormed off, and I'm like, is this what people are into? Like, where do you just walk up to someone and be like, be my girlfriend? And I'm like, sure. And then that's just how it happens. So yeah, from the beginning, I was always like confused, perplexed at the people around me. And then in middle school, I actually had that realization that, oh, I think I'm confused and perplexed as to why people are having relationships, and I've never felt the romantic pull for anybody. And I was like, maybe it's just that boys around me are just not attractive. And then I was like, well, if everyone else around me is being attracted to people, then somebody will be attractive. So like clearly that's not really the problem, unless I just have the highest expectations a 12-year-old could have. And I was like, I don't really know about that either. So I was so determined. And I feel like this is what the term masking might also mean in this context, is when you're trying to hide a part of yourself to like seem the social norm, which in my case is general romantic attraction. I tried to force a crush, like in my head. I literally in 7th grade was like, I think I'm missing out on something. So let me just try. Maybe it's because I never put an effort. Maybe you have to put effort to have a crush. Like maybe it's a manual process and not just like, oh, he's cute. I think I like him. So I picked this guy. I don't remember his name, but I picked this boy in my class. Like no one knew about this. It was just in my head. I never said anything about it, but I was like, who's it gonna be? I guess it can be him. And for like 4 days, I tried to think of all the things I would see in the cute shoujo manga I had read up to that point, and like all the little romance stories and romance movies where they'd be like, oh my gosh, butterflies in stomach, oh my gosh, heart beating fast, like that type of thing, and like daydreaming about them. I literally would manually do that or try to do that to see if something would come of it, and it didn't. Like I just felt stupid, and
Oh
I was
no.
like, I was wasting my time, and I was like, okay, so that's not gonna work. So I guess I just won't have a crush. Okay, well, I don't really care then. And I just kept moving with my life. All my friends around me at some point in time had a crush. They would talk about it. I'm not really sure if anyone in my friend group in middle school necessarily dated anybody, but when they would talk about, oh, my celebrity crush is this, or oh, I had like 3 crushes in elementary school. One of them goes to this school. I would just be like, that's nice, and I would talk about it with them, but I never could contribute anything because that wasn't something I related to.
Hmm.
So by the time I entered high school, that actually became a conscious, like, I think I just don't relate to this. And it's not necessarily like a bad thing, but I thought it also was a bad thing because I'm like, well, in America, in Western society, this is so normalized to the point where it's expected out of everyone. So I was like scared to ever really mention that, oh, I don't think I want to be in a relationship, which means I don't want to like get married, or I don't want to have kids, or I don't want to have a heteronormative family type scenario for my future. So I was like, question marks. Um, I'm just rambling. Do you have anything to
That's
add at
not
this point?
rambling.
Well,
That
not
was your
rambling,
story.
but like, do you have anything up to this point that you wanted to just mention or add for yourself?
um, no, I feel like mine is just a completely separate entity. I don't
Okay, so I'll
like.
just say mine and you say yours.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to just hog the conversation.
No, that's fine.
Um,
This is interesting though because these are things that I didn't know either.
so this is the good part. The part that I always chuckle at in high school is really where things started to fall into place, I guess. Like I started to find these sort of definitions thanks to the friends that I had in high school. Almost every one of them was a part of the community in some way, or they had friends that were part of the community. And I learned about a lot of different identities because of their lived experience, and then like content they consumed, or like their favorite singers and their life story and how it helped them, and then in turn how that like enriched my horizons. So high school in that aspect was really great because I didn't feel like a robot or something as much. But I think it was around 10th grade. um I call this my hilarious coming out story, even though it wasn't really coming out to anyone but one person. um, I have a really great friend who I'm still friends with now, and I asked her before this podcast if it was fine for me to like water down this story, and it was fine. But I believe it was 10th grade. We all had an association with art. So in my art program, we have this big art room, and that's where we would go in the mornings to eat breakfast before class, and we would go there to eat lunch because we all hated the cafeteria. And our teacher was amazing, and she let us just chill in there. So this friend was in art program for her own reasons, didn't join back by 10th grade, but she was still a member, an honored member, so she would always come to lunch with us. And she was the only person I had known from my middle school going into this high school. So I think I developed like a really strong codependent, well, I don't know if codependent is the word. It was more like one sided dependency on her. And after a while, I thought that those feelings were romantic feelings, and I got confused and more scared because I'm like, well, she's my friend and a girl. So, like, what does that mean? Me being around a bunch of other people who are like, oh, I'm trans or oh, I'm gay. And I'm like, well, clearly they won't care. But in my head, I was like, this is weird. Also, I don't really know if this is romantic feelings or if I'm just feeling a strong sense of friendship because that's always what I felt. But I think it was because she was like my only tie from before into this new school. And like we just understood each other on a lot of levels that when she was there, I was really happy. When she wasn't there, I was really sad and that type of thing. So I was like, is this, is this, is this? And to the point where there would be songs that I would make like mental like daydreams to try to see if I felt that way. Like little animations in my head because like I said before, I made characters and stories, and that's always what I've done. And so at some point, at one day, we were having, I believe it was the period before lunch. And for some reason, no, it was during lunch. I'm stupid. It was during lunch. And in our art room, we had a closet that connected two different classrooms. For some reason, we were in there, like getting supplies, and we both, like had this energy of like, we want to talk about the elephant in the room, but we don't know how to bridge the elephant in the room. So we kind of just didn't say anything. And then after lunch, I walked her back to her class halfway towards the stairwell, and she turns around in the most dramatic anime confession scene. And I'm doing air quotes because you'll understand in like 2 minutes. She basically yelled out, I think I like you. And I was like, ah! That was really loud. Sorry. I was like, ah, me too. And then we just looked at each other and then turned around and ran like
Oh,
opposite direction.
that is very dramatic.
Because I was like, what just happened? And but she turned around and sprinted up the stairs first, and I was like, and then I just turned around and ran back to the art room, and my friends were like, what's up with you? And I'm like, nothing. And she um for some reason came back. She told me she didn't think she skipped class. Like she had a reason, like a note, an excuse note for something, and got out of class and ended up coming back to the art room, which was my last period, which is right after lunch. So we kind of did like the Pikachu, oh, like meme at each other because we saw each other like literally in 30 minutes after that whole debacle in the hallway. And we were like, so we gonna talk about it or what? So we went
You
back
don't have a
into the
choice now.
we went back into the art closet, which is so funny because we're in a closet talking about getting out of the closet. But the outcome of that conversation, which I don't remember verbatim at this point, but I remember the general conclusion is that no, it isn't romantic feelings towards each other. We both had a sort of codependency on each other, but the big outcome was that we felt very intense emotional attraction to each other and not like romantic or sexual or anything like that, which led me to believing, oh, I think all of my life, the way people talk about having romantic crushes and stuff is how I feel for like friends. Like I have really intense friendship and not in a way like, oh, you're just my bestie, woo, but it's like that's the only way I can connect with people on the same level that someone might like love their boyfriend or whatever. And that's when I discovered the term a romantic, that like you don't have romantic feelings, but you still can have like really strong attractions, relationships, whatever, with people in general. And there's another term for that. It's called queer platonic relationships, which queer platonic, meaning that they're not romantic in nature, but they involve very close emotional connections that are often deeper and more intense than what's traditionally considered friendship. And I think I definitely felt that in at least the 10th grade. Um, and there are relationships that are hinged off of that sort of connection with people. And it's not, you don't have to do what is traditionally done in a romantic or sexual relationship, but it still makes sense to those people. So pretty much that was my high school, for the most part, my high school story of trying to understand myself. And then the asexuality came a little later. Um, like I said in the definition, no sexual attraction. I honestly don't know what else to say. Like, I don't.
Point blank.
Yeah, point blank. And if that's confusing to people, I totally get it because that is a foreign concept to a lot of people.
Mm.
Um, and
Most
I,
people are just like, "Oh, you mean you're celibate?" or "Oh, you just haven't tried it yet,"
or you
or
haven't found the right person, or
yeah,
like, oh, you're just young, like, you'll understand one day, you'll find the one. And I'm like, it's none of those. Or it could be some of those. Maybe I will find one person because I feel like the moral of this episode might come out to be identity is fluid and everyone's experience with it is different, and there's not one less valid way to experience these things. So I might find someone one day that it just clicks, and that's the nature of a fluid spectrum of identity and feelings. But for 22 years of my life, that's never been the case, and I'm not waiting for that to be the case because I don't care.
yeah,
I don't care. Um Pride. But yeah, I guess the last things I'll say, because I feel like we could have a whole nother podcast where we get into like the more nitty-gritty parts of it, if there are such a thing, is that in college, um I did a lot of self-reflection in high school, but I started doing a lot in college when I didn't have that same friend circle with me, and I started like seeing a lot of different types of people and reading a lot of different types of stories. And there's this one manga called Mina-kun is Asexual. Might put a picture of that somewhere, that I read in college and cried because it was really short. It's like 40 pages, but it was such a, I mean, it was one person's experience with asexuality, but it felt real because I never in my life seen a story written from that perspective that I could literally relate to. And it's not just like your general rom com or something that I'm like, oh, that's cute, and I like the idea of love, but that I can't put myself in their shoes. So yeah, I think that's me. I'm wearing this heart bracelet and these heart earrings that Mecca bought me that have really similar coloring to the ace flag. I might put a closer picture
yeah. We'll
or
post a
something.
picture.
But I like these a lot, and I wear them sometimes. And on April 6th was International Asexuality Day. Shout out to that. And I wore them on that day, and I was like, yay. It's a silent acknowledgement for myself because I don't really shout out to the world
Yeah,
that I'm this every day, because unlike a lot of other identities, people don't even check it as an identity. So like a lot of the times there is no outward discrimination that I have noticed or seen or read unless you make it known. And then people who don't understand it or think it's wrong because it's against human nature or something, that's when it comes into play. It can literally still affect your work. It can affect medical scenarios a lot, and that's very unfortunate. It can affect therapy, a lot of different things. And there are even some laws in some countries that might get into another episode that are kind of against asexuals, which I think is insane. But
no, a
it's
little bit.
still, yeah, it's like, why do you care? But but with that said, everybody matters.
Yes, I second that.
Yeah, so I didn't practice any of this, so I feel like I've forgotten some things in my own story, but
Yeah, the problem
the gist.
with talking about something at length for the first time, especially in a situation like a podcast, not to mention that our first episode was pretty long, so we're trying to keep this one succinct,
I've
but
already rambled for like
we
20 minutes.
picked quite a topic to try to do that with. So yeah, but I think
Yeah,
I think we'll keep this like 45 minutes,
we'll
maybe
try our
50 minutes.
best. Yeah.
Um so yeah, my story is not long and doesn't have a concrete conclusion.
Yeah,
But
mine doesn't either, to be honest.
I think that's the nature of being in the alphabet gang
Yeah.
is that, well, not even just, being in the LGBTQ community, it's just being a human. You learn new things every day about
Mhm.
not only yourself, but just about like your worldview can change when you learn new information. So like when you learn new things about yourself, you know, you might fluctuate one way more than the other. Like that's just, I feel like that's something that we should normalize and accept, is that like
Absolutely.
you don't have to pick one thing and stick with it your whole life,
Right.
because that's just not, I feel like that's not
It's not
the
human
human
nature.
experience. Yeah, I feel like,
That's abnormal.
yeah. So
And I went through
anyway.
like four different labels in high school that I didn't talk about because long podcast. But yeah, like I fluctuated a lot until I landed on asexuality that I didn't discover until later. So, it's a journey.
Yeah. Now, unlike you, when I was in elementary school, I probably had like maybe two crushes, and they weren't like strong ones or anything, but I definitely was like, oh, he's so cute or whatever, like whatever. I never was like, hey, be my boyfriend. Like I never went that far with
No, he
anything,
was
but
bold.
I definitely was like, oh, this person's cute, whatever. And then in middle school, it was I ended up really infatuated with this one guy, and it lasted way too long. And so I feel like I didn't have, I certainly didn't have the normal like teenage experience of like dating around or having crushes on different people, because I picked one person and then just felt strongly about him for a long time. And it maybe, I don't know, helped or didn't help that he also kind of liked me. Well,
Oh,
no, he actually liked me,
oh,
but
like at the same times?
yeah. And it was acknowledged mutually. Like we both knew that we liked each other, but like we just stayed liking each other for a long time. We never tried to make a move, and that was really on me, because part of it was just like, oh, I don't want to take that step. Like actually being in a relationship versus just like daydreaming about one is like two different things. And like I am not speaking from experience because I've never been in a relationship for this very mindset. But also the way that we were brought up, I'm not going to say our parents were strict, but they didn't very much encourage dating.
I don't blame him.
So yeah, I
I
mean,
wasn't looking forward to it anyway.
yeah.
So.
So I was never bold enough to be like, yeah, I have a crush on somebody. And then the one guy that I did like, my parents didn't really like him because he was kind of not. He was the bad boy, and
I think I know who you're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was the bad boy, and that's why I never tried to, actually date him, because I knew better. But the heart wants what it wants, or whatever it says. So like, I
So,
just liked him for a very long time, which meant that all throughout like majority of middle school and like all of high school, I didn't really have crushes on other people. Like I thought other people were attractive, but like I was like, oh my, I like this one guy, so I can't like anybody else. But yeah. But besides that, there were friends that I had, because I feel like it was when I was in like maybe 8th to maybe 10th grade, where you had that like boom in people questioning their identities. And so that's my first exposure to like, people who were anything other than straight. So it was interesting. It wasn't like in middle school when I learned, I was like, oh, cool, cool, sure. Like it didn't really affect me in any way. I was just like, cool, I'm happy for you guys, whoever. But then in high school, I had a really close friend who she was struggling with, oh my gosh, do I like girls or what? Like this is a thing. And I'm like, happy for her. And we were the kind of like we had the kind of friendship where we kind of like, in so many words, we actually flirted with each other a lot, but it was just like little cutesy whatever things. Like I didn't at the time consider it to be like romantically charged at all. But looking back on it, it very well may have been. So when she came out to me as bi, I was like, it made me think how much of our little banter, our little flirting might have, actually meant something more. And
mm,
I was like, how do I feel about that? And I didn't like it didn't bother me actually. I was like, I don't know, because she is really pretty. But I just never I think there was that internalized, I guess you could say internalized homophobia of like, okay, I'm not bothered by this so much, but like what will other people think though? Like what would my family think if I said, "Oh yeah, I like girls." So that kept me from like exploring that. And it wasn't, I won't say that I felt like I suppressed, is that the word, or repressed? I don't know. I don't feel like it held me back from anything. It was
suppressed,
just
I guess.
because at that time, I was not really encouraged to date, and I was kind of just too scared to try to date anyone. And I'm a bad liar, so I'm not the kind of kid who can go behind their parents' back and just do stuff, because I have a guilty conscience and I'm a bad liar. So I never tried to like sneakily date anyone. So So, doing any of that kind of questioning, it really just felt like a moot point at the time because I'm like, well, I'm not going to date anybody anyway. So even if I do like girls, it really doesn't matter. So I just kind of put that on the back burner and, I went about my day. And then, yeah, when I was in college, I met even more people who identified with different things that I didn't know. So I learned a lot about different identities when I was in college. And I want to say maybe college was the first time I ever heard of asexuality, or maybe it was like late high school. I don't know. But I kind of was like, this feels right. Like this term just kind of like, I don't know. I just feel like this might be me. And so I I kind of just put it in my back pocket and I was like, okay, this is something I'll revisit later because once again, even in college, I was like, I'm not really trying to date anyone, but it was less about like, my parents might not approve of me dating people, and more like I don't like being vulnerable. I don't like putting myself. I don't. I don't know what it is, but the thought of dating someone is like, but I really like being by myself, and I don't like having to explain certain things or like share certain parts of myself that is, you know, kind of required in a relationship. So it's more so like vulnerability thing. Like I don't like being vulnerable, so like I'm not trying to date. So that was where
Mm.
I was in university, and that's where I am kind of now. Although I'm like, dang, I'm 26, and I feel like I should have just went for things when I was in college. Like I feel like I missed out. Like most people say, like, oh man, wish I dated around in high school a little bit more. Like, wish I would have lived a little in my teens. But for me, it's like I kind of wish I would have did some, not dated around, but like I had a crush on maybe two people in college. One person, I'm not gonna get into that. But the second person, I think maybe he actually did kind of like me too, and there were signs there, and I kind of wish I would have did something about that when I was in college. But I'm losing track. Hold on. So yeah, labels. Um, I questioned a little bit. I questioned being bi in high school. I questioned being ace in college. When the pandemic hit, and all we had to do was sit and stare at our walls and like really, what's the word I'm looking for? Really face a lot of things.
Marinate
Whether
in
it
our
was like,
feelings.
whether it was about ourselves, whether it was about just the state of the world, and just the things that came to light when the world stood still, you know?
All of the
So
above.
me being in my, like, I'm a homebody anyway, so it's not like I was out in the streets all the time, but like when we couldn't go anywhere, it was like, it really like had me thinking about a lot of things. And in late 2020, I was on Tumblr. Yeah, shout out to Tumblr. We still be on there sometimes, but
I literally made my first Tumblr account like 2 years ago.
it's never too late.
It's never too
That place
late.
is never gonna die. But yeah, I saw a wrestling meme. I'll probably put it up. Like it's really it's gonna be weird, so I might not put it up, but we'll see. Anyway, I saw a term there that I'd never seen before, but when I saw it, I was just like, it was just a feeling, kind of like when I saw the term ace for the first time. Like, wait, what is this? This just feels like me. So the term is heteroflexible. I looked it up. It basically means that you're mostly straight. Like that's essentially what it means. Like I'll maybe put like a more comprehensive definition up, but I read about it more, and then the more I read about it, I was like, maybe this isn't me because it just felt like it's a little bit problematic because like some people say it's just being bi with extra steps, and it's contributing to bi erasure because it's like, okay, you're mostly straight but you're still occasionally attracted to the opposite sex, but then that kind of leads into like the bi identity apparently is very confusing to some people because it's like, okay, bisexual, you like guys and girls, but the spectrum on which you may sit there, like, I mostly like guys but I sometimes like girls, or I mostly like girls but I sometimes
That's
like
kind
guys,
of
or like
what
50-50 or whatever. You there I feel like people feel that you have to be 50-50 or it doesn't count or something to that
hmm
effect. So the thing with being heteroflexible is like, just say you're bi because bi just means you're attracted to both. It doesn't it doesn't mean that you have to be a certain percentage attracted to, you know. So I was like, okay, maybe heteroflexible is not for me, but it was interesting to learn that phrase. Um, so yeah, I had my good old iPod. I dug that out because I remember in 2020, between 2020 and 2022, that I kind of like just brain dumped. How do I feel about like labels? Like, what would I label myself? And long story short, because I feel like we're rambling now. And like I said, I don't know. I don't even, I've never said it out loud. So all the words are just tumbling out right now. And I do have notes, but I don't want to stare down at them. So I'm kind of not even looking at them. But I would say that for me, my current verdict or current labels, if I were to choose anything, because honestly, I'm okay with just saying I'm straight because maybe I am, but maybe I'm bi. But I feel like if I'm bi, I'm more so bi romantic, just because I feel like I'm on the ace spectrum, the asexual spectrum. Uh, and I would say that under that, I'd be gray sexual, just because it's up in the air. Like I have some hormonal issues that I have no answers to, but it could just be that my endocrine system is jacked up. Like there's, I feel like the thing with asexual identity is that some people try to disqualify it because they're just like, oh, you just have a low libido or you just have a hormonal issue. Like you don't feel attracted to anyone because it's a body thing. It's not like, it's not just what it is.
which is misinformation because libido and attraction are not the same thing. They are not. But they are
Yeah.
commonly thought of as synonymous. So,
And that is where a lot of the misconceptions come from. But there's stuff like that. There's talks like that that kind of just make you feel like, well, I'm not ace enough because I don't know if maybe it really is just a hormonal issue. So for me, it's like I feel like I'm ace, but and maybe I am, and but maybe I also have like a hormonal issue. Like it could be both. Like both is valid. So I'm kind of feeling like maybe I'm gray sexual and maybe I'm biromantic, but like these are just things that I haven't fully explored because really the main thing is that I don't like opening myself up in a romantic sense,
I
like
thought you were going to
trying
say, I
to.
don't like people. And I was like, valid.
No, I do. So the thing is, for me, like I am at least romantically attracted to people. Like I am that I want to get married one day, maybe. Like I want to be in a relationship. Like those things, I definitely feel these attractions. Well, that attraction anyway. But like the rest of it is just like I don't know. And for me, and for some people, it is valid to just be like, I'll cross that bridge when I get there. And if it turns out that that's not my label, then it's not my label. But some days I might. I mean, for the like, if somebody asks me, "Are you gay?" I'm gonna say no because it's just easier. But
Yeah.
like, if I know you, then I might be honest and just be like, I don't know. I mean, girls are pretty.
And
And
they
I don't
are.
know if like that's just an objective statement. Like, yeah, factually, women are just pretty. Or like, does that mean I like women? I don't know. I
Well,
don't know that.
there are also different types of attractions. And I saw it on the site too, and I didn't read it because it wasn't applicable. But aesthetic attraction is distinct from romantic,
Uh,
and sexual attraction is just appreciating the natural beauty of someone. And it is what it is. Like, that's probably the only attraction I've ever had towards someone besides the like queer platonic things that people are pretty and I can acknowledge that. That
yeah.
doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, I want to date you.
I forgot that was a thing. I remember back when I was like, in the pandemic times and I was like really deep diving and trying to figure out and I'm like researching, doing all like looking at all these different terms. I remember seeing that and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, that sounds about right
Because that's
too.
the only thing that made sense to me when people would be like, oh, he's sexy or something. And I'm like, I mean,
I don't know about that,
he has a
but
nice like muscular like I would literally look at it from an artist perspective because I like to draw people and I'm like, oh yeah, her face is really pretty. Or like, oh, his like silhouette would make a really cool character or something. Or like he looks really good in that outfit, but never like a husband material. And I'm like, it's just I never actually understood those things. So there are a lot of different ways you
yeah,
can.
because I do understand those things, but
Mhm.
like it's just I don't know, this thing is complicated. And at the end of the day, I feel like labels or not. as long as you understand yourself and you surround yourself with people who either don't mind or also understand you, then like everybody's happy.
Or they should be.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't know if this podcast made you learn something about us, made you even more confused. Like if this brought up more questions than explanations or answers, then oops.
I'm still oopsing every day, like, because I don't get it either.
Yeah.
I'm even less understanding of the aromantic term than asexuality, so I don't even necessarily go around saying I'm that all the time because I don't know. I feel like that's harder to navigate than saying, "Oh, I'm not sexually attracted to you," versus like, "Oh, but do I like you?" Like, I don't know. So
Yeah.
it was never meant to be easy. So
Yeah.
when people try to find an easy solution, it's like I can't give you one. I
And
don't know.
it's like the thing with labels too is just like there are so
There are too
many.
many. Like,
So like you can be like, yeah, I'm ace, I'm on the asexual spectrum, and you can just leave it at that. But like when I was looking into it, there was one orchid sexual, which is an individual experiences sexual attraction but does not desire a sexual relationship or encounter. And I kind of resonated with that one for a while too because it's just like
that
I
just
don't want you to I don't want anything, but like I acknowledge that that attraction might be there, but I don't actually want to act on that. Like I don't want anything. What?
Oh, I was just like that just sounds like is that within the ACE
Yeah,
umbrella?
that's under the yeah.
Yeah, so it was like I guess just a term put onto another concept that I've heard of the same. Like you can be asexual but sex positive versus sex repulsed, and that's like you feel little to no sexual attraction to someone, but you would still have sex with someone because attraction and the action is different too. So like that's kind of what it sounded like to me, like the sex repulse thing. Like you just don't want to do anything. It's like, no, get away from
Oh
me.
well,
I will
yeah.
like not like repulse is
To
like
me,
a
it's.
intense word, but like it's just saying like, no, I don't want to and partake in any of that. But
I
like you
think
still might feel the attraction, but like the action is different. So like you don't want to do
I've
anything.
heard positive, repulsed, and just indifferent, like
Yeah, like sex
neutral.
neutral. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
But yeah, that
yeah,
just sounds like another term for that in my head. But yeah, interesting. There are so many ways of life. Like
yeah.
literally, I remember on Tumblr once I was scrolling like this at a steady rate for like 20 seconds and the list kept going. And I'm like, are these all like real? Because it just seemed so much to take
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
So I totally get it for people who are not privy to all of this or do not experience any of this or
Or
don't
don't
know anyone
understand.
who experiences this because, bro, it's overwhelming. But it life. So gotta find answers somewhere.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like we can. I think we've said a lot, and
Yeah. Try my best to condense it because I still left out a lot.
I tried my best, and still I don't even know what I just said. But I definitely
Brain
I just
empty.
open my mouth and just let whatever come out come out. So yeah, I hope this was interesting at the very least, and I hope it doesn't change how anybody looks at either of us because it shouldn't,
In
because
the
this doesn't
end,
expect
it doesn't even matter.
it doesn't affect or change really
It
anything
literally
because this
doesn't.
has been our reality for how long, and just because nobody knew doesn't mean like it wasn't there, so shouldn't change anything, but just want to put that disclaimer out there. But yeah, that was that episode. I think yeah.
That's a nice little way to wrap a bow on it.
Yeah,
Happy
so
Pride.
yeah, happy
Yeehaw.
Pride. So don't forget to follow us on Instagram, on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Everything is at Related Note Pod, and we're also now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other major podcast platforms and all that jazz. So definitely look us up, follow us, keep up with us, and yeah. Until we up again.
Bye.
Bye.